To lose the self is to be awakened by all things. Today, I want to talk about existential kink, or in other words, alchemizing your shit so that you can find joy or pleasure in the sort of horrible, uncomfortable parts of yourself and also of life. Existential kink was coined by Carolyn Elliott. She has an amazing book. I'd really recommend it. And the audiobook is read by her, so there's a nice sort of transmission in it. Super interesting. But it really ties into a lot of the fourth way stuff that I am researching, and also tantric philosophy, everything. One of Gurdjieff's first aphorisms is to like what it does not like. Now, it would be, in the fourth way terms, the man-machine, but we can also call this like the ego or your personality. I'll first talk about like the difference between personality and essence or soul. We know when your personality is talking because a personality has really strong likes and dislikes, and essence or soul loves everything. The soul actually cannot distinguish pleasure from pain. And when we go into sort of the non-dual world, that's why everything is just one. Our soul isn't dual, our soul isn't rooted in duality, but we did sort of come here, we did incarnate in this world to experience duality, and that's where our personality comes in. Soul or essence is born and personality is learned. Now, personality isn't a bad thing. I think that, a lot of people's goal is to sort of lose their personality. I actually don't think that we need to lose our personalities. Our personality creates relatability. We're not on the path of the monk here. I mean, maybe you are, but I'm not. We want our personality. It helps us relate to people in the world. People like it. But the thing is that we don't want personality to always run the show, or at least run our lives, because that's where a lot of pain and problems come in. And I'm also not saying we want to eradicate pain, because to the soul everything is pleasurable. Most people, when they sort of are just living their lives, their machine lives, their personality is running the show and the essence is very passive, but what we want is to sort of have essence running the show and personality to be passive eventually. We basically want personality to work for the essence rather than the essence working for the personality. My personality is actually not liking the way the sun is hitting my face right now, so I'm gonna move. I could go here. No. Okay, I think this makes more sense, but a fun way to observe essence and personality is in social situations, so observe yourself and other people. Now, personality invites personality and essence invites essence. So, sometimes you'll be talking to someone and you feel like you just can't get to know them really, and it's a little bit uncomfortable, and you can have a lot of fun with people, but you don't know what they're going through, and it can be a bit what is going on. I don't know, I know a lot of people can be quite boundaried about being open, but I think that I love to be the most open that I can be, and I want to know everything about everyone, and I want you to know everything about me. I'm never gonna shut someone down when they try and open up to me. That's the most interesting part about a person. But when you're in social situations, when they start off as super fun, blah, blah, and someone's making loads of jokes and stuff, and you feel like you can't talk about how you feel, if you feel bad, or if you have something kind of a bit more internal going on in your world, it can be really difficult to kind of cut that. Once you notice it, you'll notice it. You can actually label certain interactions as essence interactions or personality interactions. When people first meet us, they pretty much always meet our personality, unless we're sort of crying about something, but even then we'll probably integrate personality a little bit. When we start observing ourselves and also other people become so entertaining. And I made a little TikTok about this ages ago, but I just said once you learn to observe the many eyes that are in a person, you stop needing to go to the cinema, because it's just so fascinating. Now, when we talk about becoming awakened by all things, you're probably okay, and how does that work, or why does that work? Now, I personally think that a lot of problems with sort of like new age spiritual advice is that it's all this kind of like positivity mindset thing, because good vibes invite good vibes and blah, 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 which is true to a certain extent. Like, I'm not going to completely discredit that statement. Yeah, sure, like the law of duplicates, whatever it is wants to duplicate itself or like create more of it. So yes, when the vibes are good, the vibes are probably gonna be good or even get better. But I want to talk about what Carolyn Elliott said in her book Existential Kink. This is actually a story from one of her students, or like an anecdote. What is it called? I don't even know what it's called. It's not a quote because I'm not directly quoting it, but it is like what one of her students said. But one of her students described that a lot of the time, like, a spiritual path can feel like you're kind of like looking up at the sun and you're looking at like this beautiful light and all this happiness, but there's like, you can't fully enjoy it because there's like this stench of shit. And then you look down and you're like, fuck, I've been standing in this pile of shit like for this whole time, and you're like trying to, you know, the sun's on your skin, it's on your hair and you feel warm, but like the odor is it's really ruining the experience for you. And so like, what do we do about that? What do we do about like the shit stench that's kind of like getting in the way of our like spiritual growth or development? Instead of spraying your shit in perfume all the time, over and over and over, you need to go and dig down into it and alchemize it. You need to turn it into compost. When you turn your shit into compost, you can grow a beautiful, fertile, delicious garden of life. Nourish yourself and other things and other people with your shit. We need to learn how to like take pleasure and get off on darkness and pain and scary parts of ourselves. One of Jung's quotes is that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. So he's basically saying that until you take your like deep unconscious fears or desires and realize them, they're gonna keep popping up in your life, and it's gonna happen over and over and over, and you're gonna think that that is just how your life is supposed to go. And that's the life that was meant for you. But no, you just didn't ever acknowledge anything. The fact is, the reason why like the same problems or issues keep arising for us, such as like, I don't know, financial issues, which is one that I really struggle with, or relationship issues, again, for me, struggle with that sometimes. I feel like I have terrible luck in relationships. But these things keep popping up because they are like unconscious. But we have to like really take responsibility for this. In Existential Kink, she talks about how God is kinky. And of course God is kinky, but God has like many faces. God is the absolute. It's bigger than anything that we can ever conceive. But clearly God takes delight in pain. And so if we are drops in the ocean of God, then we probably also experience that. Maybe we can take delight in our afflictions. The key to really living a more enjoyable, erotic, yummy, delicious life is to sit with every single impression, every experience, especially discomfort, and digest it and chew it until it becomes good food. And now this isn't to say that like we have to take let's say a relative dying as something that is actually incredibly joyful to us, because that's pretty unrealistic. Or like a breakup, we don't have to be like, oh, this is really feels really good, because it's probably not going to feel good. But what I'm saying is we have to take delight in the sensation that it's causing, and also realize what can we learn from this. Every experience that we have, especially the difficult ones, make us a more rich and complete human being with more wisdom. And to me, that's really exciting. I think that's one of the most simple, straightforward ways to be appreciative of everything that happens to us. We learn a lot more when we take wrong turns or we hit objects or limitations than when we only take right turns. We don't learn anything. And actually, when we experience a lot of hardship and we grow from that, it feels a lot more rewarding. People who have everything handed to them on a plate often feel even more dissatisfied. You may think that you want everything handed to you on a plate, but realistically, I don't think you would. That's kind of like trust fund baby syndrome. where they feel dissatisfied because they haven't really had to work for anything, or they don't know what it feels like to not have things. I'm not saying that all trust fund babies have never worked, I'm just saying it's quite a common thing. Now, I'm going to talk about alchemy a lot. Alchemy and spirituality obviously go hand in hand, because the great work in alchemy is almost identical to the path to enlightenment. One of the fundamental principles in alchemy is solve et coagulo, which literally means dissolve and coagulate. And a sort of thread that I found super interesting, and I found this out in Carolyn's book, but it speaks about how obviously the word psyche, which means soul or mind, also obviously comes from ancient Greek, and there was a sort of hidden double meaning in ancient Greek. Often psyche is noted as a word for like butterfly or moth. And as we know, caterpillars in their cocoons before becoming butterflies completely sort of break down and dissolve into this like gooey pulp before they can emerge as this beautiful new creature. And so if we think of our human minds in the same way, we all start out in the world. And this also can be tied into the fourth way, the principle that none of us are born enlightened. We are all born into this world with a mind that is sort of wormy, gooey form that needs to be broken down and transformed in order for us to grow or fly. We have to be dissolved before we can be reformed. Can't, be half dissolved and reformed. You've got to be fully dissolved. So we need to get down and dirty with our minds. We've got to uncover everything before it can be dissolved. We have to make the darkness conscious instead of just imagining the light. I think that a lot of dissatisfaction is because we stay in positions or situations that we don't want, but we are afraid to change for whatever reason. A lot of unhappiness is also rooted in jealousy of other people, and jealousy comes up when we witness other people have something that we, for some reason, subconsciously think that we couldn't ever possibly have. I've spoken about this a bit, but I think jealousy is super great and interesting because it's an opportunity to look at someone that you're jealous of, or look at a situation and just pay attention to them and see the areas in which you could become more like them. No, we can't become more like another person in every way, but we can become more like certain aspects of their personality. So learning proper self-observation and observation of others is great. We need to be bold enough to face the sucky aspects of our situation and not just push it down and hide it away or hide from it. We need to get really comfortable with the darkness. We actually should be taking shameless enjoyment in sucky situations in our life. When we stop resisting our situations or the truth of our situations, they don't need to persist. Transformation and liberation of energy lies in acknowledgement and responsibility. And responsibility is one of the most important things. Everything in life is response. Life is quite literally response. And so we need to develop responsibility. We need to take responsibility. That is where power lives. So instead of just moping around being everyone is like this, everyone wrongs me, everyone hurts me, people make me anxious, take responsibility for what you're actually saying. There's power in it. People are so afraid of their shit or miserable that they end up self-sabotaging. They sabotage their relationships, they sabotage their jobs, their families, everything, their money. I'm going to bring this back to alchemy, but in alchemy or in magic, everything is used, burnt up, but not destroyed. Growth is alchemical. Magic is alchemical. It's no fun being a victim to life when we can take what we are experiencing and transform it. We stop being a victim. You don't want to live the rest of your life feeling like you're a victim to the world and a victim to people. It's so depressing, and I've been there, but when you live your life from this perspective, you have no power. You have to take responsibility. If you can take responsibility for just one tiny part of a situation that you're in or something that happened to you, then you have power. Being a victim is not powerful and it's not enjoyable, but it's interesting to dig deep if you keep finding yourself in situations where you do feel victimized or bad things keep happening to you. dig in. Maybe you actually like being a victim. The important thing is to not be ashamed of that. Shame is like one of the number one killer when it comes to growth and alignment. You have to just be very forgiving to yourself and let yourself be. Forgiveness is like, high conscious love. And it's something to learn, but it's acceptance and it's letting something exist as it is. Forgive yourself, please. We need to do this like uneo mentalis, bringing the two parts of our being together, the unconscious and the conscious, the masculine and the feminine, everything. We need to bring it together in this triangle so that we stop feeling alienated as other from our unconscious selves or from our shadow selves. We have so much to learn from the deeper, darker parts of us. Seeing the truth in ourselves is the thing that grows our essence or makes our essence stronger. But we have to have this like real goal to truly live from the essence, not just as like a way to like achieve merit in spirituality or something. Like we have to want to live from the essence more. And like one of the only ways that we can change or grow the essence is to observe ourselves, and especially observe the personality without judgment. And this has to be done like very delicately. When we start to like really criticize what we're observing in the moment, when we're observing ourselves being upset, we will stop doing it. We don't really want to criticize it because then we can't learn anything if we stop doing it. We need to witness ourselves, have an emotion or go through an experience, and then we can reflect on it later. Basically, don't stop what you're feeling, just see. Because if you stop what you're feeling, you're covering the shit in perfume again. When it comes to personality and sort of growing the essence, we don't have to sacrifice like what we've learned or the good parts of ourselves that we've learned. What we need to do is try and diminish the sort of identification with parts of our personality. It's like strong identification that needs to be surrendered. This kind of like key to a more pleasurable life is kind of seeing the fun and game in it all. And this does go past like usual manifestation techniques, which are like about getting everything that you want and you only get what you want. I am like slowly really loving pain and difficulty and kind of putting myself in situations that are uncomfortable. That's kind of why I moved here, and I'm wanting to change it. We don't want to live a life of discomfort forever, but we have to also accept that there will forever be discomfort in our lives in some way. When we take delight in hardship and limitations, they end up having a lot less power over us, and we are very much set free. Like I said, everything is pleasurable to the soul, just not always to the personality. And when we find something that we dislike, we should ask ourselves, why do I dislike this? Or is there a part of it that I actually love? When we really want something or we're experiencing something difficult in our lives, I want to introduce to you this prayer method. So when we pray, we're very much used to praying to this like masculine Abrahamic God, where you go, oh God, I want this and I'll do all this with it when I get it. That's very much like talking to your dad. And I learned this prayer method from my teacher, Mami Onami, who some of you may know. And it's actually from Ifa tradition. So I am no Ifa priestess, as you can tell, but this is something that was passed on to my teacher and then passed on to me. So this Ifa method of praying is praying to the divine feminine. Well, the feminine doesn't like to be told what to do, but if you say you've got a problem, she wants to fix it. This is my favorite way of praying. I do this multiple times a week, and it's pretty amazing because when you surrender to your pain, big things happen and change. Now, the divine feminine, we don't have to think of her as a goddess or something outside of us. We can think of it as something that is inside of us, and this is not obviously not just for women. We all have the desiring, denying force inside of us. Masculine and feminine doesn't really have anything to do with gender. So the method for praying to the divine feminine, think of this like crying in your mother's lap, maybe the mother that you never had, but it's the same thing. You're gonna go to your mother and lay your head in her lap and just say all the things that are wrong in your life, all the things that you're struggling with. This can feel really counterintuitive because we've often been told to kind of plaster over the negative aspects and just be grateful, you know, blah, blah. But with this method of praying, you can be kind of stupid. Think of it like this: you just have to say that you're hungry and your mother's gonna cook for you. Your mother's gonna cook you a meal using all of these ingredients in the kitchen that you hadn't even thought of these ingredients that you didn't even know existed. It's really not complicated. You don't have to say, dear, whoever. You can go to her and be like, I don't know what to do with my life. You don't have to think of the solutions. This is the thing with this method of prayer. This isn't for you to come up with the solutions. This is leaving it to like the higher self or the divine feminine to find the solutions for you. Whereas when we pray to our masculine God, we often go to him with like a business plan, right? We go to him with a plan for what we want to do or what we want. But this divine feminine method is surrendering to your emotions, surrendering to your pain, and then being presented with an answer on the other side of that. And things do change really quickly for you. Surrender is like the final line of the triangle. This is the third step. Surrender comes after will and after fear. We reach the line of surrender and then it meets with will again at the top, and I'll put in a little diagram here for you. Surrender is the final step to getting whatever we want, and so we have to surrender to our true selves and to our emotions. Our lives are going to be a whole lot more fun and enjoyable when we really get familiar with ourselves and we accept ourselves. We have to be able to bear ourselves fully before we can bear others. You're going to carry a lot of resentment and bitterness. Everyone's going to piss you off if you don't know how to bear yourself, and if you don't first see the problems in yourself before you see the problems in others. When we really are like annoyed at another person, it normally means that they're actually very similar to us. Before we judge another, you need to judge yourself. So now for the Q&A part. So I posted a question sticker on Instagram and I got some really thrilling questions. I'm going to answer them to the best of my ability. Now I want to do this more because it's super fun. My bunny book, look at it, isn't this amazing? Like my journal that I've been using, I've been doing like body graphs in it, and also just like entries, but then also reflecting on topics for my videos and etc. This question: how can I like myself more? I feel like I do everything wrong. I think that a lot of what I said in this video would help with this, but we have to be very forgiving and kind to ourselves, and that means kind to every single part of ourselves. If the fact that you feel like you do everything wrong is one of the main things that plays into you disliking yourself, that is perfectionism. If you feel like every mistake that you make brings you back to square one or something, that is perfectionism. Perfectionism is kind of like shame. It's pointless and it's so harmful to growth. You know, when you become more gentle with yourself, you become more gentle with others, or just train yourself to become very gentle to others, and I think that in turn it would teach you to be more gentle with yourself. I think we have to remember that like this is our first time here. This is our first time here in this body, in this personality, and like I said earlier, we learn a lot more from making wrong turns than we do making right ones. Stop expecting yourself to be good at everything now. Stop expecting to be perfect. Just accept that you make mistakes, and I just think that is okay. It is okay. As long as you are accepting of other people's mistakes, you can also be accepting of your own and forgiving. Forgiveness isn't in wanting to change a situation or a person. Forgiveness is in letting it be. And sometimes that is in letting it be away from you. Loving yourself more is something that just does take time. I think I love myself a lot, but I don't love myself as much as I know I can. Especially when it comes to like how I look and those sorts of things. I'm very vain. Sometimes I think that like I'm not that vain compared to other people, but I think about how I look all the time, and it's something that still like I struggle with, even though, oh my god, like when I look back, I've come so far, but I definitely struggle with it. sometimes I know that I am like annoying. I know that I can be super annoying. I know that I can also like speak too fast, like a little bit out of control, or like say things that I don't mean. But I do also see those things as just like part of me, and that doesn't mean that it's part of me that doesn't need to change, but I acknowledge them. I'm really bad at sticking to things, and I think that's one of like the main hindrances of that gets in the way of me like fully loving myself, because I'm like, why am I not just like committed to things? I'm committed to people, but I'm not committed to like my decisions and life paths. But that's because I have to like try everything before I know if it's right for me. Like I can't just like think of something and be like, oh no, I know that wouldn't work out. I have to like fully go all in. But I do think that I am luckily not a perfectionist anymore. Like I'm really not a perfectionist. Maybe a perfectionist about like certain situations, but I'm not a perfectionist about my life or like how I execute things. I'm willing to like dive in properly, because I think that every time we like have an idea and we only half do something, or we stop because it doesn't seem right straight away, or we like can't do it right, it damages our sense of possibility. Every time we do something, we don't finish it, we damage our sense of possibility. Is personality something that needs to be changed? Not so much changed completely, but yes, like there are probably bad parts of your personality, and often the worst part of your personality is the part that you kind of like brush off as like cool or cute or like silly, like basically it's like the stone discarded is the cornerstone when it comes to your personality. So the thing that you think is like, oh, it's just like a cute part of me, that problematic part of me, that's probably actually the thing that you like really need to face and deal with head on. Again, don't address these things with shame. Don't shame yourself. Accept that it's part of you, and also accept that it's something that you want to change about yourself. But ultimately the goal is to bring essence and personality close together. We're not gonna like a lot of our personality is always going to be us, because we have learnt to be a human based on certain experiences in our lives. And there are some things that would take forever to unlearn, but if you really want to unlearn them, it's definitely worth it. Conditioning is hard to unlearn, but get to work. I'm just editing, but I realized that I didn't say like what the discarded stone of my personality was. And my stone discarded is my sort of like my very particular nature, and like my need to control things, which I think a lot of us have to a certain extent. But like I'm like so particular about like when I want something, like a plan, and it doesn't go my way, it can really affect my mood. But like, you know, for so long I can sort of play that off as like I'm just particular, but like, you know, I like nice things though, so like it's fine. But if something like affects your mood deeply and also affects people around you, so I need to work on it. And also that I just like don't get over things easily, like I can't let things go. Again, getting better at it. If it has like the ability, if like a part of my personality has the ability to ruin an experience for me, something I need to work on. It takes time, not perfect. Oh my god, definitely not perfect. Trust me. But now I'm aware of it. It's a lot better. Another question: how to handle everyone else and make decisions that feel true to yourself and your principles. So I think here would be to do like a core values exercise with yourself. What are your core values? Name 5. Can I think of 5 for myself off the top of my head? I think a core value would be to like kind of let nature take its course. Or like just kind of like let the world take its course, not try to be so in control of everything. Another core value of mine would be to live a life that is very beautiful to me. Like I want, you know, beauty, not just like physical. I just mean like surrounding myself in beauty, and art that I love is always going to be extremely valuable to me. I want to be in beautiful spaces. Another core value would be to always be nurturing my friendships. My friendships are one of the most important things to me. I have a 4/6 profile in human design, so if you know anything about that, a 4-line, like, their relationships are one of the most important things in their lives, and that's so true. I never want to stop cultivating my friendships and feeding them. Basically, do a core values exercise with yourself. When you have strong values that you know are your own, you become unshakable. Then you don't have to handle other people. It kind of gets rid of that problem completely in itself when you're sure of what you care about and what you want and what is important to you. When you can look at decision making from that perspective, everything becomes a lot simpler. The next question is how to stop feeling lost and find purpose and passion. I think it's that we have to remember, earlier I spoke about the ocean of God. It is not in the nature of the ocean to be still. And I've said this before, but we're not unchanging. We're gonna go through big highs and lows and periods of feeling lost. Let yourself rise and fall in and out of interests that you have. I just think that that's what passion is. Passion is when something kind of brings that glowing ball of light into your chest, even if it seems, weird and out there. Follow it a bit. Again, this ties into not damaging your sense of possibility. Go for the thing that interests you and just look at it as best as you can. And if it still interests you, continue to pursue it. And when it stops interesting you, don't force yourself. Don't force yourself to continue pursuing it. Just give yourself, be graceful with yourself. Passion and purpose, it will line up at some point, but not every passion that you have is going to be your purpose, if that makes sense. But you do need to be following your passions in order to find your purpose. Also, maybe look into the Japanese concept of ikigai. It's super fun. They have these crazy long tests online, which I did once, and it gave me something completely that I would hate to do. It doesn't interest me at all, but I understand that the core of it does interest me, if that makes sense. I actually can't remember what it did to give me, but those are fun. Just read up. I think that there's books on it, or watch videos on ikigai. Purpose is something that I'm still trying to figure out. I do think that I'm meant to probably be a teacher because I enjoy teaching people things. Anything that I know how to do, I love teaching it. And I love answering questions. And that's one of the main roles of a teacher, right? So I do think that my purpose is to be a teacher in some way, but I also know that I really want a lot of money. And I'm very honest about that now. When I decided that I actually did want a lot of money one day, which was only this year, I think, that I was finally no, I actually do want to be rich. Fuck this. It started, it kind of completely rerouted me, and I had to start making a lot of different decisions about my life, about how to move forward, because even though I don't have to be there now, I want to find ways to be working towards that wherever I can. How to find comfort and confidence in myself. I think that this ties into the first question about how you can like yourself more, and also into the purpose and passions one. Confidence is liking yourself more. Comfort comes from security in yourself, being unshakable. How do I keep close to the self and keep others' energy at bay? Now, I think that what I immediately replied to this was you don't need to worry about other people's energy. Bad energy is just something that you need to look at within yourself. When you think that someone has bad energy, it's always about you. It's not about the other person, which is something that a lot of people really struggle to hear, but it's always about you, trust me. Stop worrying about other people's energy affecting you. If something's affecting you in that way, it's actually a leakage in yourself, in your own energetic field that you need to patch up. So you don't need to keep other people's energy at bay. Actually, when it leaks in, it's interesting. Like I said, everything is good food for the soul. So sit with discomfort and digest it until it's good food. Sit with the reason why you don't want other people's energy in your lives, and which energies you don't want in your life and which energies you do want, because often whatever energy you do like means that you're not very much like that person. We like what we are not, and we don't like what we are, most likely. And when we sit with our own discomfort, we become close to the self. We become much closer to ourselves. So that kind of answers your question, I think. This final question is, how do I deal with fear, absolute terror, affecting the personality? Now, this is like a really hard one for me, because I think that I used to be so fearful. But actually, it's weird, because I've always thought of myself as like a super fearful person, and I think that I am, like, again, talking about human design, I have a completely open, undefined spleen. I'm like a mental projector, so loads of, like, pretty much the majority of the centers in my design chart are open, but my spleen is completely undefined with like no gates, nothing. And that means that like you're pretty much ruled by fear in your life. But it's interesting because actually, like, I've done a lot of like really bold things, I think, for my age, maybe, like, I don't know, I've made a lot of changes and big choices, and I think that fear is not necessarily a bad thing. It's an opportunity to go straight into what we are afraid of and alchemize it. And I think that I've done that a lot unknowingly, and I'm doing it even more now knowingly. But I don't have to I can't like eradicate fear. Like, fear just exists for me. My friend Noor replied to this question sticker saying, find something that you're even more afraid of, which I thought was like great. I loved that. But yeah, we do need to go straight into what we are afraid of in order to alchemize it. It's the same with the shit thing. Your fears are in that pile of shit. Also, in the Existential Kink book, she mentions that there's this psychiatrist, Fritz Paris, I think is his name. He said that fear is just excitement without breath. So apparently fear manifests physiologically in the same way as excitement does. Like the sensations that come from fear are actually incredibly similar to excitement, but it's without like breathing properly. So if we like breathe through fear, we can appreciate the sensations of it and actually transform it. The other thing is that like there are two types of fear. There's like instinctual fear. This is the fear that, you know, when a bunny sees a fox, when a bunny smells or hears a fox, it runs straight into its burrow, and that's like useful fear because it is life-saving fear. But a lot of the fear that probably we are talking about is the emotional fear. And like even somehow bunnies do come out of their burrows again and again. So you can too, if a bunny can do it. Emotional fear, like, it's not useful to say that to me. It's not useful for me to say that, like, duh, well, it's all in your imagination. Imagination isn't real. Because it's true, like, imagination isn't real in many ways. Imagination is just kind of like knowledge being stronger than your being, and that is what we talk about in the fourth way. Like, in the fourth way, you're basically trying to get your being to be equal to your knowledge. We want to, like, we can't fully understand something until like we live it and experience it. So like we can know things, but they can be like completely irrational. But too much knowledge, like anxiety, is essentially the overabundance of knowledge and the lack of being in accordance with it, if that makes sense. I don't really know like how to form a sentence around that right now. So what would my solution be? It would be to go towards the fear, because then we can become familiar with it and familiar with the fact that maybe it actually isn't as scary as we think it is. One of my main tips for dealing with anxiety, and I've been doing this for like a long time, and I just feel like I'm like hardly an anxious person anymore. In fact, I'm pretty much not an anxious person at all, and I used to be awful. I was diagnosed with like OCD and all this crap, which I don't even have. I don't think I have it, but I was just incredibly anxious. Now when I'm talking about going into the fear and anxiety or terror, it's to basically think from the perspective of how would I actually, okay, so imagine it did happen, this thing that I'm afraid of. Imagine it did happen. How would I feel? What is the worst case scenario? And often the worst case scenario isn't that bad, and when we really try and embody how that would feel, we become familiar with it. It becomes a lot less scary. And sometimes it's like, what is the worst case? Like, really, really, what is the worst case? Especially when we're thinking more from the perspective of the essence. We think about, oh, but how could I enjoy this in some way? I think that is like one of the main remedies to fear, is when a fear comes up, thinking from the perspective of, oh, okay, and if it did happen, how would I feel? Because I think that we like create these fears, we don't ever like go deeper than that. Like, we're just like, I'm afraid of this, but then it's like, okay, but why? Like, really, like, why are you afraid of it? Familiarize yourself with what it would feel like if that fear was suddenly manifest. And then if it does manifest, for whatever reason, which it probably won't, you'll be more prepared to deal with it. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this video gave you something good and interesting to chew on for the next few days or week or something. Fuck New Age positivity. You do not have to be good, in the words of Mary Oliver. To the soul, everything is just sensation. And the paradox is that all sensation to the soul is pleasurable, even pain. And try to welcome and love your darkness, and leave any questions you have down below. And follow me on TikTok, so I'm going to start doing live Q&As on there. And follow me on Instagram to respond to my question stickers for the next video I make. Bye!